friends and net aspirants, welcome back to High Point again. And I hope all of you are doing great and good in your life. And yeah, within some days, it's going to be our NTA UGC NET English exam. So I hope you are tremendously and rigorously you are preparing for it. So here comes the previous and important questions related to literary theory, part 1. So without wasting time, let's see the first question. What do Wimsatt and Beardsley rail against the intentional fallacy? So Beardsley and Wimsatt, they together brought a tremendous essay or work known as the intentional fallacy, which is very famous. So do learn that intentional fallacies by Wimsatt and Beardsley. So they were against something in the intentional fallacy. So what is that? So the idea that the authors are the ultimate source of meaning. So we actually, when we read a text, we often try to find that what is the intentional meaning of the author by saying such things in a work. So whether our idea or what we perceived from a work or from the line of a poem, whether it is correct, we will compare that whether our perception is correct along with the author's perception. So we always look for the author's idea in saying such things. Okay, so that is not the correct way, that is not the only way to find the meaning in a work. So when we ultimately think that that ultimate source of meaning is the idea of the intended idea of the author, so that is intentional fallacy. Fallacy is a mistake that we are doing. So that intention, when we search for such an intention or author's intention in a work, then we are committing the intentional fallacy. Okay, so basically Wimsatt and Beardsley, they were against the idea that the authors are the ultimate source of meaning. So against that idea, they developed the intentional fallacy. Next question. According to the title of his well-known work, what was William Emerson's analyzing? So William Emerson actually wrote a very great work known as Seven Types of Ambiguity. So in this work, he actually looked at seven type of ambiguity we can find while we are criticizing, while we are analyzing and reading and making, meaning out of a work. Okay, William Emerson. Please remember his work's title, Seven Type of Ambiguity. In that work, he actually discusses about seven type of ambiguity that as a reader, as a critic, that one can find while reading a particular work. Next, in which work would you learn that the heresy of paraphrase? So in which work, actually, by which author we can have a look at a term known as heresy of paraphrase. So about heresy of paraphrase, which work and which author discussing. Okay, so it was Cleanth Brooks, The Well-Wrought Urn. So Cleanth Brooks has written a work known as The Well-Wrought Urn. In that work, he is discussing about the concept known as the heresy of paraphrase. Please remember all these things, because as you go, you will come across many, many terms, many works, many authors. They are actually participating in various schools of criticism and theory and all. So basically, you have to be very clear who wrote which work, and that author or that critic belongs to which category of criticism or which category of modern theory of literature and all. So heresy of paraphrase, we can find that phrase and a discussion about this thing in The Well-Wrought Urn, which is written by Cleanth Brooks. The next question. The major work of new criticism became a standard textbook. Okay, so there is a major work written by someone in new criticism, and it became a standard textbook in new criticism. So which is that work? So that work was the new criticism by John Crowe Ransom. See, all these works, understanding poetry, the intentional fallacy, all these works actually belongs to new criticism only, but which is a standard textbook of new criticism, that is the new criticism by John Crowe Ransom. So here comes another question. Who has written the title, the work known as the new criticism? It is John Crowe Ransom, and he is the one who wrote a work in new criticism with the same title, the new criticism, and introduced the term new criticism. Okay, so who introduced the term new criticism by writing a work known as the new criticism? It was John Crowe Ransom. Okay, but the key figure in new criticism is I.A. Richards. not John Crow Ransom. Okay, new criticism key figure is I.A. Richards. Okay, so please be very clear about such smart facts. What method is closely associated with a new criticism? Okay, so some methods of analyzing textbooks are given. So you have to understand which method or what method is closely associated or closely in practice with a new critics in new criticism. Close reading, analyzing how texts reflect their historical moment, exposing power relations, over reading. See, actually all these things are we do when we analyze a text, but in new criticism, the new critics particularly, they say that close reading is the most important thing when we analyze a textbook. Close reading, read the text rather going about the intentions of the author or the background things, or discussing about the historical moment and all. So rather than that, you have to read the text closely. Even you don't consider who is the author, even you don't consider the historical events discussing or the power relations, anything else, but you when you read the work closely, then only you will analyze them correctly. That is the way of how new critics they looked at a work. Next, what were new criticism reacting against? Okay, so what in reactions to what new criticism emerged? So, and also the question can be rephrased like this: about what new criticism was, critical about. Feminist reading of text, Marxism, historical and biographical reading of the text, Ofra's book club. So they are basically against Ofra's book club, but here they are also against looking too much about a text, historical and biographical reading. So author's intentions, looking for author's intention and biographical details of the author, historical background of the work, and such historical and other facts related to a work which stands outside the text. All those things are irrelevant according to a new critic. But here, new criticism was a reaction against Ofra's book club. The next one, which genre of the new critics must enjoy analyzing? So basically, new critics, they were criticizing or analyzing which category of literature. So basically, they were analyzing poetry. Okay, poetry. So with the genre poetry was analyzed by new critics more. Next question, if you are reading like a new critic, what sort of things are you looking for? So if you are reading, if you have put a new critic lens to you, and if you're reading through that lens as a new critic, then what sort of things are you looking for in a text? Ambiguity, tension, irony, paradox, technique, form. So please read and please understand. Pause the video and please read it actually at least 5 times. That in new criticism, these terms are very important. Okay, ambiguity. Emerson says about 7 types of ambiguity. Then that belongs to the new criticism. Tension, irony, paradox, technique, form. So for new critics, form is more important than content. Okay, so they will actually look for ambiguity, tension, irony, paradox, technique, and form in a textbook. Textbook in the sense in a text in a work. Next question: what essay title sounds most like a new critic writing? So here are some some titles, some statements are given which is more sound like a new critic writing. How Victorian readers responded to marriage plots, ambiguity and irony. See, ambiguity and irony, it is closely related to new criticism only. So you can, by the presence of these terms, you can understand that. See, the option B can be the right answer. Ambiguity and irony in William Carlos Williams' poetry, Sewers and Dumpsters, a modern waste collection, live in the Elizabethan court, poetic clues to the Queen's preferences. So the answer is, like I said, option B, ambiguity and irony in William Carlos Williams' poetry. Maybe if you don't know ambiguity and irony related to these terms related to new criticism, this question can be very challenging for you to arrive at a correct answer. But learn from this above the previous question: ambiguity, tension, irony, paradox, technique, and form. These are the things that mainly new critics are looking for, looking in a text, looking in a work of literature. Next question. The linguistics generally associated with the initiation of structuralism as a moment is. So, from whose, from which linguistics works or studies structuralism mainly sprouted as a movement? Okay, it was from Ferdinand de Saussure. From Saussure's idea of sign, signifier and signified, and his main teachings and all his main lectures, from his ideas mainly structuralism got initiated as a movement. Okay, from linguistic structuralism, then post structuralism, then we have deconstruction. It goes like that. Next, the observation that structuralism is belief that the phenomenon of human life are not intelligible except though their interrelations are made by. Okay, who actually observed like this? That structuralism is belief that a phenomenon of human life are not intelligible except though their interrelations. So, if you know the interrelations about human life. So in human life, we have many interrelations, right? We are perceiving some, more or less everything that is there around us in interrelation with something else, right? So if you don't know, if these interrelations are not intelligible to you, then it is not human life is not intelligible to you. So who said this thing about structuralism? It was Simon Blackmore. Okay, Simon Blackmore. Jacques Derrida, he belongs to deconstruction, and Vladimir Krop, he is more or less a Roman, Russian formalism. Then Claude Lévi-Strauss is also structuralist. Uh, through his works, we can see he is a structuralist anthropologist, Claude Lévi-Strauss. Next question. Here goes the next question. France saw a popular rise in structuralism. You see, all this structuralism, deconstruction, everything deconstruction is not mainly Paris, but still we can see all these main modernist to postmodernist theories and literary theories mainly saw a rise in France only. So historically, if you see, structuralism got a popular rise in France in which decade? Actually, in 1960s, we can see that France saw a popular rise in structuralism. See, I'm going little bit fast because otherwise this video will become too lengthy. So we can actually talk at least many points related to structuralism and all. But still, as the question comes, I will try to explain some more details about it. Okay. Consider the following statements about structuralism. So here are at least, here are we have four statements about structuralism. You have to find out which all are suitable to describe as structuralism, which are true about structuralism. Structuralism got spread all over the world following the rise in its importance in France. Okay, so like we said in 1960, it got a rise in structuralism got a rise in France. So this can be right? Because after France, structuralism got a rise. Structuralism spread all over the world, but from there, structuralism is related to criticism in all fields of literature and painting. So no, structuralism is not related to painting, but it is also not related to literature as well. Structuralism began in 1960s. No, structuralism only got a rise in 1960s in France, but it was there before because from Saussure was there before. So before 1960, and from his linguistics ideas and his theories about language and all, it got arrived. Structuralism tries to identify some already tantrum structures in all new creations. So actually, structuralism was all about finding a popular structure or the structure of the work. Not actually, it is not about the form or genre, but the popular structure that is there in a work. Okay. So option 1 and 4, these statements 1 and 4 are correct. So option D, 1 and 4 are correct. The next one. Which of the following critics is not considered to have dearth with structuralism? So which is not, who is not considered, which critic does not consider to have a dearth with structuralism? It is Jacques uh, Derrida. Jacques Derrida. Next one, the literary movement that began in response to structuralism was. So after structuralism, we find structuralism, post-structuralism. Post-structuralism is not a continuation of structuralism, but it rather goes against some of the ideas that was there in structuralism. So the literary movement that began in response, in more or less against to structuralism, was post-structuralism. Okay, not romanticism, not colonialism, not post-colonialism, but post-structuralism. See, from these options, it is very easy to choose. Okay, but if some other options are there, then maybe if you don't know that post-structuralism began as a response against structuralism, then that can be a little bit challenging if you don't know. The next one, post-structuralism particularly observes the following shortcomings of structuralism. So, why post-structuralism? Why should such a thing should happen as post-structuralism after structuralism? So there should be some reason, some shortcomings will be there for structuralism. In order to address that shortcomings and in order to develop more theories, after that post-structuralism must be developed. So what kind of shortcomings were there in structuralism for in order to post structuralism to to develop? Okay, so you have to find out the shortcomings of structuralism. Structure is considered were not credible. The structure it includes are not self-sufficient. It overlooked a number of basic structures. The theory of structure itself was not credible. So the option C, the theory of structure itself was not credible. So actually option D, theory of structure itself is not credible. Okay, and it also mainly option C also correct, because unlike structuralists, post-structuralists actually admitted that there are many different kinds of structures we can find in a literary text. From there post-structuralism actually begins, because structuralism only, it never considered multiple types of structures, but it only considered the popular type of structures that is there in a text in order to understand the text in a better way. Which of the following critics is associated with the post-structuralism rather than structuralism? So from the given list of critics, you have to identify which is more associated to post-structuralism rather than structuralism. It is Michel Foucault. So Vladimir Propp belongs to the Russian formalism, Jacques Derrida deconstruction, and Roman Jakobson again Russian formalism. So Michel Foucault is the one who actually more or less associated to post-structuralism rather than structuralism. Okay. The next question. What is the next question? Consider the following statements about post-structuralism. Again, here there are some statements about post-structuralism. You have to find out which one is more correct according to the things related to post-structuralism. And it was a movement concerned to intellect. So if you intellect in the sense, in a normal sense, you cannot understand what is post-structuralism or structure. So it is mainly concerned to intellect, the how we perceive things, and how such kind of little elevated, and it is a movement that is concerned to our intellect and our perception and how we interpret things. It believed in defining the structures in products like text. So that is, yes, it actually considered that, or actually identified that there will be many kinds of structures that we can find in a work, and identify those structures in products like text. That is the main thing that in post structuralism we can find, and it was used in number of fields like linguistics, psychology, anthropology. Yeah, by Claude Lévi-Strauss, we can see that post-structuralism and its theories are used enormously in anthropology and linguistics. From linguistics only, structuralism and post-structuralism began. So psychology also, we can see that when we tell about multiple structures in psychology also, it has its application. So number of fields like linguistic and psychology and anthropology, we have seen that it has an application. It came into prominence with the works of Jacques Derrida. No, Jacques Derrida belonged to deconstruction. So yeah, Jacques Derrida's work before that, Jacques Derrida talks entirely, totally against structuralism and post-structuralism. So option A, 1, 2, 3. Statements 1, 2, 3 are correct. 4 is not that correct. The next question, the Gang of Four regarding structuralism did not include. So Gang of Four means Gang of four pro-structural structuralist theoreticians or critics are there, Gang of Four. So who is not included in that gang of four? It is a Prop. So Vladimir Prop belongs to Russian formalism. Claude Lévi-Strauss, Lacan, and Barthes. These all are mainly they rendered the idea of structuralism. Okay. Next. Feminism has been defined as asking new questions of old texts by. So feminism has been defined as asking new questions of old texts by. So who defined feminism like this? We are asking new questions to old text. So it is feminism is defined like that by Lisa Tersley. Lisa Tersley. Next question. The Mad Woman in Attic is written by, see, Mad Woman in Attic is written in the year or published in the year 1979, and it is written by, not, it is written by, Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar. So, in this literary theory, in each school, there are key figures and their key texts are there. So, as we go on in this question, please remember the titles and the schools they belong and the authors behind all those key texts. Okay. So, The Mad Woman in the Attic in the year 1979, it was written by two authors, Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gubar. The next one, the Mad Woman thesis generally suggests that. So, what is the Mad Woman thesis? In feminism, women are considered mad by men. The frustration felt by women due to gender discrimination make them feel like being mad. The suppression of their creation power by society's subversive manner. In the past, the only way for women to fight gender discrimination had been to behave like a mad woman, not mass, mad women. So option C is the correct answer. The society, the subversions and subjugation and suppression of the society, okay, that actually referred in the Mad Woman thesis. Next, consider the following sentence regarding feminism. So you, like earlier, like we had statements about post-structuralism and structuralism. About feminism too, there are certain statements are given. You have to identify which one is correct. Feminism believes that women are not familiar to English language as men are. Feminism believes that the way women writers used language was different than the way male writers did. So this is correct. Mainly there is a thing that we female, when it comes to female writers, they cannot use the same language. Same language, maybe they are using the same language, but the way in which they are using the language will be different from their own counterparts. That means the male writers. And feminism believes that women use language in a comparatively digressive manner. That is also correct. Feminism believes that language of women writers give full expression to their ego. So option here statements 2 and 3 are correct. So option C is correct. The next one, the most obvious connection that feminism has observed between myth and women's social condition is. So, what is the most obvious connection that feminism observed between myth and women's social condition? Myth has contributed in establishing social names that could help men to dominate women. So, feminism is all about equality in gender. Okay, so because of gender of someone, there is no right that there is no need to discriminate someone, whether someone is male or female or transgender. There is no need that that person get discriminated because of that. But because of the gender, this various kinds of discriminations are happening. So they say that myth actually contributed such a social norm, such a social thing that actually helped men to subjugate and men to dominate women. So that is the obvious connection that feminism finds with myth and women's social condition. You can pause and read the options, okay? The next one, who is associated with the famous lecture, the classical feminist tradition? So, who delivered this famous lecture titled as the classical feminist tradition? It was Paul Fry. Paul Fry delivered the famous lecture, the classical feminist tradition. The next one, The Female Eunuch, was published in. So Female Eunuch is a great work and it was published in 1970s. It was published in the year 1970s. Identify the proper chronological order of the following words concerned to feminism. See, here comes a question in which you are asked to arrange the chronological order. Arrange the text in chronological order. Here the texts are related to the school feminism. So the correct answer is thinking about women, sexual politics, the female eunuch, and a literature of their own. Okay, thinking about women. There comes after that we have sexual politics, the female eunuch, and the literature of their own. Next, the concept of gynecriticism is believed to be pioneered by which of the following words? If you know anything about feminism, you have to understand and identify gynecriticism is a term, is a key term of feminism, and it comes in a work known as a literature of their own, written by Ellen Showalter. Okay, a literature of their own. Gynecriticism as a term, as a concept is introduced in the literature of their own, a literature of their own by Elaine Showalter. The next one, a literature of their own was published in 1977. A literature of their own is published in 1977. Please tell it with me, okay? The literature of their own by Ellen Showalter, written in the year 1977. The next one, which of the following has not been particularly part of feminism as a literary movement of any stage? Okay, so which of this process or which of this analysis was not a part of feminism as a literary movement in any stage of feminism. Okay, treatment of female characters by male writers. Obviously, in feminism, feministic analysis of text, we are doing that. Treatment of female characters by female writers, that is also there. And roles played by women in the publishing industry. The influence of male writers on the work of female writers. So actually, option C is the correct answer. Roles played by women in the publishing industry, because there were no popular women publishers were there, so the roles played by women in publishing industry, which was not a thing that studied in feminism as part of feminism as any literary as a literary movement in any stage. The next one, eco-criticism. What is eco-criticism? Eco-criticism is sometimes called green cultural studies. Is criticism, it is a criticism concerning on the relationship between literature and natural environment. It is one of the fastest growing critical approach. So actually, which is the correct answer? All of the above. All of the statements are correct about eco-criticism. The next question. The inventor of the dialectic. Dialectic is a term, and who invented it? Who invented the term dialectic? It was Friedrich Hegel. Hegel invented the term dialectic. So immediately when you hear dialectic, you have to remember Hegel. Friedrich Hegel invented the term dialectic. Next question. The leading literary Darwinist today is. So from the given option, who is the leading literary Darwinist that we can find? So Joseph Carroll. Joseph Carroll is a leading literary Darwinist of the contemporary times. Literary Darwinism is opposed to. See, literary Darwinism, it is opposing what? It is opposing post-structuralism and ecofeminism. Okay, literary Darwinism. Maybe you may go for post-structuralism and deconstruction, but basically, literary Darwinism is against post-structuralism and ecofeminism. Next question. Hegemony was defined by Antonio Gramsci. See, Antonio Gramsci is the one who actually came up with the term hegemony, and hegemony was popularized by Gayatri Spivak. So, hegemony by hegemony, what is Gramsci meant? It means how dominant groups maintain their power. So simply hegemony is ruled by consent. Okay, the dominant people, they are ruling over the lower strata of the people, or lower, less dominant people in a society, or they are exercising and maintaining their power. Hegemony is all about that. So option A is correct. It can be imposed by those in power in such a way as to make those beneath them feel that they have free choice. So actually, it is not that, that's why hegemony is ruled by consent. It is not that compulsorily these dominant people they are coming and they are exercising their power, but they impose their dominance in such a way of these less dominant people in the society in such a way that they will feel, these less dominant people they will feel that they have a free of choice, they have free choices in their life and they are free, nobody is dominating them, but actually they are dominated by the dominant group of the society, they are suppressed and subjugated by the dominant group of society in an indirect way. So that is hegemony. So option A and option B are correct, so option D is correct, both A and B. This hegemony term and all, it is very popular in post-colonial literature, in Dalit literature and all. Who composes the behavior of apes to characters in Shakespeare's play? So, who composes the behavior of apes? So, actually, the question is that a critic is there. He or she actually compared the behavior of ape to the characters that we can find in Shakespearean plays. Who made such a comparison? Okay, it was Daniel Nettle. Daniel Nettle compared the ape's behavior to the characters in Shakespearean play. Next, what is the difference between old historicism and new historicism? So, new historicism and old historicism are there. So, what is the essential difference between these two? So, option C is the correct answer. I'm not going to read the whole options because that will unnecessarily lengthen this video. So, old historicism is merely background and context literature, only reflecting only history, while new criticism argues that literature and history influence each other. See, if you see the old historicism, it was merely looking when they read new historicists read the text, they will look at the background, the context, the historical aspects of a literature. But in new historicism, they argue that the new historicists argue that literature and history influence each other. They are more or less the same, right? Right? In new historicism, what is the famous statement? The historicity of the text and the textuality of the history. See, literature and history influence each other and then can be similar at points times. Next question, George Lucas preferred literature that reflect social realism. So what kind of literature that George Lucas preferred? So the answer is George Lucas preferred literature that reflected social realism. Okay, social realism. The next one, who was Sit influenced by Matthew Arnold? So it was not Sit, okay, sorry. Who was it? Who was it? Influenced by Matthew Arnold, who sought to remake the British education system so that literary knowledge could be distributed more widely, especially in the working classes. It was Louis Althusser. Louis Althusser. Louis Althusser. About Louis Althusser, and we will learn elaborately in when we discuss about questions related to cultural studies. But here also we can see that all these people, F.R. Lewis, Karl Marx, Raymond Williams, Louis Althusser, these all people, they have some sort of influence in the modern theory, not only about literature but also their theory affected politically too. So Louis Althusser, he is the one who got influenced by Matthew Arnold, and he is the one who sought to remake the British education system so that literary knowledge can be accessible and distributed more widely, especially to the working class people. Okay, Louis Althusser. Next one. Who is the critic most interested in how those in power in his books Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison, The History of Sexuality. So basically, who has written all these works? Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison, The History of Sexuality. So all these works are written by Michel Foucault only, and it all talks about, all these works are talking about how power exercises, okay, how power exercises in various fields. The next question, like literary Darwinist, eco critics propose. So what was proposed by eco critics? Their approach as the essential metric for all literary study. So not only eco-critics, not only literary Darwinists, every other theory, every other school of literature, every other school of theory, basically they suggested that their approach is the essential metric to study every other literary text, every other literary aspects. They locate human value in nature, they end to literary criticism. So option D is correct. Both A and B are correct. Their approach, see, acoustics, their approach, they claimed that was as the essential metric for all literary study, and they locate human values in nature. Okay. Next question. Some critics are suspicious of literary Darwinism because, see, some critics they actually criticized and they were suspicious about literary Darwinism. What was the reason for that? See, all these options are correct. Darwinism was reinterpreted along racial lines by Herbert Spencer. It calls up such evil as genetic determinism and eugenesis. It reduces art of genetics. Okay, so because of all these reasons, literary Darwinism was, was under suspicion by many critics. Next question: the ideas of the political unconscious and subjective position are those of, who put forward the ideas such as political unconsciousness, subject position. So, whose ideas are political unconsciousness and political unconscious and subjective position. So, it was Frederick Jameson put forwarded these ideas, political unconscious and subject position. Next one, Foucault episteme is. Foucault episteme is. What is meant by episteme? Foucault came up with episteme. So, what is it? It is the broad totalizing function of culture observation in literary text. It is a broad totalizing function of culture observation in literature. See, when we see a text, there is a tendency going on that, see, if it is about some sort of things happening culturally in a society, then there is a generalizing, totalizing tendency that in the society, in everywhere that is discussed there, it is happening like that. Okay, so it is a generalizing tendency that we can find in a literary text. It's a cultural observation. So that is option B is the correct answer. So we have finished the question number 45. So that's all about this video, I guess. Yeah. So if you have any doubts and queries, if you have anything more to add, then you can comment all those things in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and also don't forget to visit my website www.highpoint.in. There you will find immense number of practice question papers and also question papers, previous question papers from 2004 onwards to the contemporary time, the recent times. So that's all about, and you can also join a WhatsApp group. I have given the link in the description box. If you want, you can join there. You will find daily quizzes, notes, and things related to news and updates related to NTA, UGC, NET. And you can also contact me through WhatsApp or call me in the number given here if you want any sort of help regarding NTA, UGC, NET, JRF, English language and literature. And if you want me to make any further any kind of topics as videos in my channel, also comment that and let me know about it. I'll be very glad to share anything to help you to achieve your UGC NET, JRF, English language and literature. So yeah, if you have any doubts, let me know, and if you like this video, please press the like button and also share this with your friends. And that's all. And if you have not subscribed, without fail, please subscribe. That is a great encouragement for me. So that's all about it. Thank you. Let me meet you in the next video section. Bye bye.